Welcome to Living with Purpose. Today I have Cleo Escarez. She is the founder of Redyoos. She spells it as Reydoos. And the reason I say it is that it's only this morning that I actually said, oh, she actually means this as reduce. A little light in my head went off as to this wonderful organization that she started, which is all about sustainability and recycling jewelry. But she is really focused on building a greener future for all of us. She's a former alumni of Starbucks, where she was a brand manager there for Tijuana, which is the tea brand, which is what I actually go to Starbucks for. So with that, let me welcome Cleo to our podcast. Cleo, welcome.
Thank you. Thanks for having me. And a little background on where the name came from, Redyoos. If you just put on your 5-year-old brain, that is how we came up with it, actually. My 5-year-old daughter, we were brainstorming on what should we name this company? And she spelled reduce phonetically, and that's how she came up with it. You know, the URL was available, wasn't being held captive for $1 million, and the business license, it all worked out. So it's exactly how you pronounce it phonetically.
Cleo, talk a little bit about your story, your journey, your growing up. How did your life unfold? And how through that layers of unfolding with all the wonderful, interesting things that you have done has got you to Redyoos?
Yeah, a very good question. So starting from growing up, I'm actually an immigrant. I was born in Manila, Philippines. And I immigrated here at around 4th grade and lived in Seattle, went to the University of Washington. And then right after college, we did a stint in the Bay Area. My then fiance, who's now my husband, works in the tech industry, which is what brought us there. But the retail industry was actually much larger in the Bay Area as well. So there was a pull for me there because my whole career has been in fashion and accessories and consumer goods, as you had alluded to earlier. So what brought me here, I think, the path hasn't been linear in terms of like founding a company, but I think being an immigrant, I've always had the entrepreneurship spirit in me. Like I've always known that I was going to start something on my own, but has cultivated expertise along the ways. And there finally came a time where I felt like I needed to bet on myself, I guess, which is why I started Redyoos, or one of the reasons.
Yeah, so give us a little bit more insight. How were things you were doing as a child? Why fashion?
Like I said, I think being an entrepreneur is just kind of in my blood. Being an immigrant, we come from a family that didn't really have much. And so we always had to make do with very little. My parents and my grandparents were the OG of sustainability because they always reuse things. They always recycle things. And there was never a title around it, right? It was just like a way of life. We never purchased Tupperware, for example, to reuse for our food. We would use containers that we purchased from other food and repurpose that in some kind of way, right? So there's always been something in me where I knew that they were valuable, that everything comes from something and that they are resources and can be turned into more resources growing up. And I think that was really a product of not having much, right? Being forced into reusing and really thinking about what is sustainability and how you incorporate it in your life.
So how do you get to Starbucks?
How did I get to Starbucks? It's very interesting. So I have been really fortunate enough that all of my jobs that I've ever had has been through either a referral or someone that I worked with. And some that I have worked with in a previous role at Blue Nile, which is a jewelry company, had basically was working on the Tijuana M&A. And that was the time when they were acquiring the brand. And she had reached out to me and said, look, there's this specific role that I think you'd be great at, which is in merchandising. And being a Northwest girl, it was Starbucks has always been on my list, right? In terms of like company to work for because of the brand affinity the good impact that they're doing, at least from a sustainability standpoint. As large as the company is, there's been some really great impacts that they've done. So that's what brought me. It was my expertise within merchandising and fashion and accessories. So I was in charge of all the tumblers and things like that within Tivana and opening up retail stores within the Seattle area. So that's what really brought me, because there wasn't much, I think there was a need for that expertise at that point.
So talk about jewelry.
Yes.
I mean, one kind of reuse stuff is clothes, even food containers. There are lots of things that one kind of thinks about reuse. Jewelry is more people exchange, right? I'll borrow your whatever, but it's never really thought about it as a reuse piece. So you're kind of introducing this a very different mindset around jewelry and how one should actually be seeing jewelry not just as a possession, but something that can become much more community oriented. So talk a little bit about why this whole concept of reuse and jewelry is coming.
Yeah, jewelry is very interesting. And like you said, it's much different than a lot of the great work that's being done around textiles and recycling and upcycling. And primarily it's because of the actual raw materials and the component that's being used in jewelry. What a lot of people don't know is that your jewelry actually shares the same raw materials that is shared across other industries, right? So one way to really think about jewelry is silver and gold, which is what the majority of the jewelry is made out of. It is also being found in industries like aerospace or the medical industry or clean technology, because a really easy way to think about it is that anything that has an on-off button or has silver and gold in it. And the reason why is because these metals are the most conductive metals in the world. And I knew this because of prior to running Redyoos, I was running a jewelry company, sustainably sourced, ethically sourced. So I was intimately familiar with the supply chain and the customer journey. So with all of that information and expertise, I knew that jewelry owners really had a challenge in terms of how to address the end of life of their jewelry. And, there's several reasons as to why, right? Most people are attached to their jewelry from an emotional standpoint. Some of them just hold on to it because they don't know what to do with it, which is the majority of the group of people. It's like they purchase jewelry and then it maybe gets broken or it is out of trend. But then a lot of them, because they don't know the supply chain or where things come from, they don't know that there are materials in there that are actual resources, which is what the solution we're trying to solve is to educate people and to tell them that, look, this is not garbage. This should not be ending up in landfills. This is jewelry that can be repurposed, that can be remade into something better and much needed, such as technology.
So for people who are uninitiated, where people actually may not even think about jewelry ending up in the trash, because, when I kind of look at what little knowledge I have of jewelry from my wife or family members, it's gold and silver. If you don't like the ring, you go back to India and you basically say, go make something else out of it. But how do you actually get people to think about end of life of a jewelry?
That is probably the biggest challenge that we have within the company is really the education piece. And that's also one of the strengths. Once we inform people of the usability of what their jewelry is made out of, they are very open to it because we're not going after high-priced items, right? We're not going after thousands of dollars worth of jewelry. Think about your wife, if she had one silver earring and the other pair is missing, or there's no back to it, or she has a broken chain. That's really what we're trying to empower jewelry owners to address, because jewelry is very out of sight, out of mind when you want to address the end of life. It's not like a sofa where when you're done with it or if it's broken, you have to do something with it, right? Because you physically see it. With jewelry, you can really just put it in a little baggie and slip it in your drawer and just forget about it until the next time you see it and you're like, oh, I still have this. I should do something with it. But that I should do something with it is what we're trying to provide, because there isn't good solutions for people to do something with it right now. So that's what we're providing.
So talk a little bit about what does Redyoos do? How does that kind of get to this whole sustainability, value regeneration space?
Yeah, very good question. So I built the company with the circular economy framework. And if you're not familiar, really there are three main tenets to it. One would be to design and extend its life of any product, to reuse it or turn it into a resource to be reused to some other component. And then thirdly, it's to renew and regenerate your natural resources. And with our business model, we really try to incorporate all of that. So for example, right now we have a mail kit program where we will send you a prepaid postage stamp where you can just send us any of the jewelry that you want to recycle, and we'll take both fashion jewelry and fine jewelry, because the first tenet is we do not want any of this end up in landfills. So fashion jewelry are things you'd probably recognize as something that's inexpensive, doesn't have precious metals or gemstones, but we also want to ensure that those are not ending up in landfills because they're quite toxic and, product that should not be in landfills that won't decompose. And what we do with that is we partner with local 501(c)s or nonprofits. Dress for Success is one of them, where we donate very good quality jewelry still, and they'll give it to their members to support their program, and or they'll resell it to fund their nonprofit. So that's like one stop in the circularity model, right? Like to divert as much as we possibly can. And even the broken things, we partner with local art programs where, for example, there's just like a broken necklace that has beads in it, right? They can repurpose it in some kind of way to make pieces of art with it. So that's the first step within the model. The second step is really identifying what is important and recoverable from a resource standpoint, and that really is the precious metals. As we speak, there's a huge widening gap between our supply and our demand with precious metals. And jewelry takes up about 40 to 50% of our global supply of silver and gold, and very little of it goes back into circularity. It is so important that we put that back into our global supply because of the fact that it is less harmful to the environment, right? Like mining newly mined resource is very negatively impactful from an environmental standpoint and a social standpoint. And also nature is telling us that there's absolutely no reason why we cannot be recycling these metals, because precious metals are the most recyclable thing in the world. Silver and gold are probably the most recyclable thing that can go back to 95% of its virgin state. There's very little things like that exist, and it can be infinitely recyclable. So those are really the three main tenets within our business model to ensure that there truly is like a closed loop circularity for us.
You're making a very interesting point that you're not going to use it, you're not going to give it to somebody else, you're just going to sit in your drawer, do something with it, because that can reduce what gets sourced, which causes harm because of mining or deforestation that takes place or chemicals that are used to clean precious metals. And you're then helping it go into other industries where there is a need.
That's correct.
And you are now contributing to a much larger sustainability movement than just a piece of jewelry.
Exactly.
So how is it going?
It is going great. I am genuinely surprised about the support and the interest within the community, both from a fashion and accessories standpoint, as well as the clean technology community. Like you said earlier, I think there's a lot of work being done around textiles and apparel, but I feel like we're a little bit the novelty right now in terms of the only company that's talking about jewelry and accessories and how we can really turn that back into a resource. So yeah, short answer is I think it's going really great. we have had so much interest. This is probably the 4th or 5th podcast that I'm on to talk about what we're doing. And every single one, everyone walks away with like, I didn't know. And they have now great jewelry trivia to be sharing, which really makes me so happy.
So that's great. So let's shift gears and just talk a little bit about purpose and the importance of purpose in your life and why you think purpose is what should be driving people.
Yeah. That's a really good question. I feel so privileged that I actually get a line of work in a company that is so aligned with my passion and my purpose. I think that this is the first time where I feel fully aligned in it because I'm working on something that genuinely matters to my values and my beliefs. And I just have never really had that opportunity prior to it. And then the funny thing is I don't know if it's funny, but maybe serendipitous, I don't know, but my work within purpose and following my purpose, it just like has a life of its own for some reason. It's like I feel inspired and then opportunities present themselves and then coincidences happen. And the fact that we're even talking has been just a series of coincidences and happenstance. I feel so fortunate that I get to work within my purpose.
As we end the conversation, give us your one golden nugget, a piece of wisdom that you want to leave behind for the audience to emulate.
Oh, that's a big one. That's a big responsibility. I just know that there's one saying that is always in my ethos and any decisions that I'm making for the company. And that is this quote from Chief Seattle, being a local Seattle girl. And the saying is, and I might fumble it, but it is, we don't inherit the planet from our ancestors. We borrow it from our children. And it really resonates with me because as a mother of 3, I feel genuinely indebted to my children about the kind of planet we're leaving them and the future generations, because all we're doing right now is just like taking and borrowing, and we're not really making any deposits or meaningful deposits. And that's what I want my legacy to be. And I just feel so fortunate that I have found, a good channel to do that. So I leave it to everyone, really just being open and curious about what your impact could be. For me, it's jewelry, precious metals. For you, it could be something else. It could be you, Akhtar, creating this like great platform and podcast for founders like me and amplifying their work, right? Like impact could be found anywhere. I think you just have to really be open to it. So that's what I got.
Thank you so very much. I mean, just this notion of be cognizant of how you show up in everything that you do. Because at the end of the day, you are borrowing from the future.
That's right.
And from your kids or your grandkids or whoever that may be. And purpose instills in you that ability to show up and be part of humanity in a way the focus is not just on yourself, but it is on the extended good, the common good. So with that, Cleo, thank you very much. Again, thank you for listening to another episode of Living with Purpose. Purpose is that renewable source of energy that continues to drive humanity forward. Find your purpose, act on it. Until next time, thank you very much.
Thank you so much.